Welcome to the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and I have with me, this could be the greatest guest ever because I have Jay Z with me today. Nope, not that Jay Z. I have Jay Z from DALI Speakers. What's up, man? I know. It's even better than the other one, right? You're the original, the OG.
I am the original OG. I am the original Jay Z. Don't settle for rap billionaire moguls married to pop icons. Go for the original, and that's me.
We're going to get you an OG Jay Z t-shirt. You're going to be, you're going to have all, it's going to be amazing, right?
So I like that. I'm going to trademark it. I'm stealing that from you, man.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. And, this is really cool. I have a little experience with the brand. I'm excited. But before we get into that, I don't know that much about you at all, besides our really cool conversation before we started this. But tell me a little bit, because you've been around the industry for a while. Tell me a little bit about you, how you got into HiFi, how you got into the DALI. Just give me the backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone in this industry got bitten by it at a really young age. I probably credit my brother, who's about 6 years older than me. He was working in a hi-fi shop when he was about 18. And I got brought in to be the kid that would cut the wire, carry the boxes to the cars, do the install, stuff like that. And just absolutely loved it. When I found something that I can play loud and nice and clear, I was hooked.
What was your first hi-fi system?
My first hi-fi system was an NAD 7225. That was the integrated amp. I had a Sony CDP 55, which was a really early single CD player. And that was all connected to Paradigm 5 SEs. You call them bookshelves these days. You sure wouldn't. They were the old style bookshelves that were like 2 feet high that still required, tiny, tiny little stands. But I remember it well. Hey, everyone remembers their first, right?
Man, NAD sucks you Lenbrook guys in, let me tell you, because every single I think you're the third person I've talked to and done a podcast from one of the Lenbrook brands, and I'm pretty sure, but besides maybe Agatha, that everyone's hi-fi system started with an NAD. And typically I have one behind me. I'm just in the midst of redoing my set, but usually I have one behind me. Would you like to guess which model NAD I usually have in the set?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I guess it depends on how old it might be. Would you say that it goes back a few years or kind of recent?
I would say it's recent, but in theory, it goes back a few years.
Ooh, that's actually a couple of curveballs. I wanted to say something like a Masters, like an M32, a big, beefy integrated amp.
All right. Well, it's actually the 3050, right, with the meters.
That's brand new, and that is just the coolest thing.
Yeah, so I have one of the limited ones, and I just right now it's actually in my living room right now. So we wanted to, I swap stuff around. I get so many things come in and out, and
sure.
I put this one in. My wife loves it, so that is what is currently in the living room, and something else will go up here. So, but yeah, I love, I'm a vintage guy, so I do a lot of vintage content and everything. So that's just one of those staple pieces. So, so you had your first hi-fi system, and how did that journey continue? You got the bug. So where did it go from there?
Got the bug, and then, just fell backwards into a career. I was working in school, and I was doing managing a store part-time, a place called the Audio Center up here in glorious Montreal. And I set up a training for Mirage speakers. And we flew in their VP, and we just really kind of hit it off. And he said, we need more young blood in the industry, something you might be interested in. And I said, hell yeah, and got started that way. I was studying economics in university, made me want to blow my brains out. And when something like this came up, it was like, yeah, I think I can go for that.
I'm going to start saying university. I talked to so many people that say university. I think out of the 5 or 6 people I interviewed at Expona, everyone was from Europe or Canada, and everyone says university. So I got to get this new language into my vocabulary. I'm just bringing it down here. I'm bringing the French, or I don't even know.
We'd be talking a different language.
Right. So that's amazing. And then, so now you're with DALI,
Mm-hmm.
and do I am pronouncing that right? DALI?
You are pronouncing it right. DALI.
Perfect.
DALI is
And tell me a little bit about the brand, how long they've been around, kind of a little bit of history for somebody that's never heard of them.
someone who's never heard of him. The first thing I say is it does not stand for Salvador Dali. DALI is an acronym for Danish Audiophile Loudspeaker Industries. And it's important to sort of highlight a couple of those letters. The D for Danish, it's remarkable that this tiny little country of 5 million people put out such high quality audio gear. You have brands like Dine Audio and Bang & Olufsen and Griffin, all really high-end companies. And there's many more that I can mention. Out of this tiny little place, they sort of view that industry as an indigenous product, the same way Florida would look at oranges or France cheese. And they sort of joke, hey, the weather sucks. What else are we going to do? We stay home a lot. So when you hear that a product is out of Denmark, it's already setting a pretty high standard. And when you have a word like audiophile embedded in the name, well, you're setting yourself to a pretty high standard. So that sort of gives a little bit of the background of who they are. The Danish, they have a Viking heritage, and yet they hadn't really planted the flag in North America. They conquered the world. They're actually the second largest speaker company, those that make boxes. So I'm not talking about CI, but your bookshelf, your tower, all that kind of stuff. Second largest on our planet behind only Klipsch. But they never planted their flag in North America. But that's what we are trying to do. I technically work for Lenbrook, owners of NAD and Blue Sound, and we're the distributors of DALI. So we're trying to spread the gospel of DALI out there.
And the wildest thing about these speakers, before we get into maybe like any certain models or some new stuff, because I know there's a lot of stuff you probably got to talk about. Maybe. If for somebody that's never seen these, the drivers are the thing that stood out to me from the beginning, right? And before getting any of the sound, any of the looks or other features, the drivers themselves are made differently than really any other drivers that I've ever seen. And I would assume nobody else does it this way. Tell me about the material that the drivers are done from.
I can tell you about the drivers inside and out, and I specify that because it's important. So we'll back it up and we'll start at the engine of the driver, the magnet system. And every magnet system on our planet is iron-based. And why? Because it's great to conduct the magnetic principles, which you need to move the driver backwards and forwards. The problem is it also conducts electricity. And electricity, by pure definition, is heat and noise. Nothing good about heat and noise in our industry. So what DALI does, it's very different from every single company on the planet, is a good portion of their magnet system, and more proportionately as you get higher and higher up in the line, use a material around the voice coil called SMC, soft magnetic compound. Now, this is a material that has all the magnetic principles that you want, so lots of power moving that driver back and forwards, but none of the electric principles. So you are not conducting heat, which means push it hard, you'll always play loud and clear, but 1/20,000th of the distortion. And it's distortion that always makes you say, hey, that's too loud or something isn't clear. So it really starts right there as the main part. But then, as you say, the visible part, the cone, which is a wood fiber cone. Probably won't find anything else like it. And, the funny thing is you go higher and higher up in quality of drivers out there or quality of companies, you'll see more and more they go to natural materials, and they'll usually call it paper because it really is just a pulp. What really differentiates DALI from all the others is they have a tremendous amount of wood fibers that just run through the cone itself, and very randomly, which is important to really break down the resonances. And they find that it is the absolute best at a stiffness to weight ratio. You can get man-made materials that are stiffer, but then they become kind of over-damped. You can have other materials that are a little bit looser and might be able to go faster, but then they're not as controlled and they start to break up. So that DALI cone really is a very unique part of the whole DALI story, and really goes a long way to giving it that unique DALI sound.
The first time I ever saw one, I was like, "What is this?" And like, because you can put your finger around it, and you can almost, I think you can feel. As I remember, you can kind of feel them. And I'm
Very
like, "What it?" And I had to go do a little bit of research and see, find out about the pulp and everything, because I was just like, "What the heck is this?" Because you never see that. You just see, the other materials that are more common. So just a very unique thing and a talking point to somebody who has these speakers in their homes. Somebody comes up, they're going to say the same thing and be like, "What is that?" So it's always good when you can have a conversation piece as well.
Absolutely. Gets you started talking. And I think the best business is always word of mouth for sure.
And talking about the speakers, you guys have two new lines in the speakers you just launched. Am I correct?
Two that are pretty recent. Tough. Boy, it strains the company when you launch two big product lines back to back. And they staggered them out just a little bit. We recently launched the Rubicore series and the Epicore series.
So the Rubicore, is that like, which one's higher in the lineup? The Epicore?
Epicore is higher. It's all part of what was basically a 3-year plan that culminated this year. It all launched with the big, mighty core, the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion of the speaker world, weighing in at 382 pounds. Big beast of a speaker, comes in at about $150,000. And, companies, sure, they're thrilled if they can sell speakers like that. And we do. We sell a surprising amount. But the real reason that you do a product like that is what you can learn from it, and then try to trickle down as much as you possibly can. So not long after that came the Epicore 11. And just by numbering it, probably made it the worst kept secret in the world that other models would eventually follow. So Epicore 11, and then this year, the plan coming to fruition with Rubicore and Epicore, more models, the 3, the 7, and the 9. They used to be called Rubicon and Epicon, but because of the core and the trickle-down technology that you get throughout all those series, they changed it to Epicore and Rubicore.
So what's like that, when you have the trickle-down technology, like what principles kind of follow those speakers? So if you're like maybe entry-level, right? What principles you're going to get in the entry-level lineup that, trickles down from that, beast of a 380-pound speaker?
I love that question, because that's what I love so much about DALI. Is it's remarkable how much you can bring home, what percentage of a core you can bring home in their entry-level speakers. There's initial series is called Oberon, and that uses SMC technology as well. Not as much in the magnet system as the other ones do. The most important part is around the voice coil. So you use more and more around the voice coil, but it nonetheless still has it. And it even uses the wood fiber cones in Oberon series. It, starts at $750 and goes up to about 4,000. The Opticon series is the one that I truly call the audiophile series, because between you and me and everyone else listening, the audiophile isn't the one that drops $150,000 on a speaker. That's a guy that has a lot of money and just says, "Hey, I want the best possible." The audiophile is the guy that says, "Hey, I just spent $3,000 on a speaker, but it beats speakers at 20 grand. And that's really what Opticon gives you. Even less expensive than Rubicore, integrates a lot of the SMC, the wood fiber cone, and a part of the technology we didn't talk about in DALI that's incredibly unique is the high frequency section, where we combine a ribbon and a soft dome. There's a lot of companies that use one or the other because they're both good, but they both exist because they both bring cool things to the party. A soft dome, really, really smooth, great power handling, and decent dispersion, but it gets very directional at about 10K. A ribbon, on the other hand, really opens up at 10K and gives that just gigantic, airy kind of sparkle to sound. So when you combine the two, as they do in core and epicore and rubicore, and even brought down to the Opticon series, well, then you get something that has truly broad dispersion. And I'm calling out every other company who says, oh, we have wide dispersion. The only real way to do it properly is by doing them both. And that's what makes it so easy to drop into a room, because it truly has wide dispersion. So the Opticon series, a tower starting at $3,000 gives you a tremendous amount of technology that you get out of the $150,000 core.
And I've tried these speakers at Expona a couple years ago. And I don't know. It was, and it may have been a different one, but it was like the 380-pound giant beast. And this just, if that's a newer model, I'm not sure. But about maybe 3 years ago, you guys were out in like the open lobby.
Yeah.
Where it's right next to the registration desk. It's like
Exactly.
You would acoustically look at this and be like, why are people even setting up here? And then it goes up like 4 floors of just open areas. Like if you could just be like, what's the worst case scenario for an acoustic treated environment? It was that, right? But you guys set up those giant speakers, and I came down, and all the guys were really nice. They all knew me, and we had fun. They're like, what do you want to play? And I'm like, I want to play Eminem. What right? So we, because I don't listen to the normal audiophile tracks that everybody else demos, and I'm like, put on something crazy, put on, some Eminem or something. And it sounded really good. I guess the dispersion may have had something to do with that, just the speaker in general. But I mean, I was super impressed by the speaker, and I'll just never forget that. And, I see hundreds of, setups at these shows through time. And that's 5 minutes was all I was there. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that experience. And, do I remember the little itty, things about each sound and what, instruments or what? No, I don't. I just, the experience of listening to this speaker in that environment, the size of it, and just the overall experience was just unforgettable.
Exactly. Expona, I mean, is the premier consumer-facing show in North America for the public. So because of that, getting a good room is difficult. People have been trying to get into those rooms for decades. But I wanted any kind of piece of the floor. And going into any of the hundreds of hotel rooms, well, you're not memorable. They all sound really good. I'll take nothing away from them, but what makes it memorable? So we thought, man, we can have a really fun, cool lounge, let people listen. And I love that you mentioned Eminem, because frankly, at our shows, we listen to music. Demo material is cool when you have the sale almost closed and maybe you want to push something, but demo music isn't what creates that emotional connection. So we set up there. It had no right to sound as good as it did. And by the way, it was driven, that's $150,000 speaker, and it was driven by about 12 grand worth of NAD gear. So it kind of goes both ways. Not only did it show that NAD punches so far above its weight, but DALI is really not demanding. You could connect it up to just about anything. They joke at their own factory saying, we're amplifier agnostic. Don't let the amp get in the way. We'll get you really, really far with just about anything, and then you can take it to the next level. But we had such a fun time at that show, and one of the things I remember most about that specific location, we went over to reception and just say, hey, look, if we're playing it too loud, just give us a signal and we'll turn it down for you. They were appreciative of that, but they never did. If anything, they just kept giving me the louder, can we make requests? And we absolutely did. So it was just phenomenal. Great show.
So what did you guys do this year? Do you have a little bit different setup this year?
We absolutely did. One of the organizers of the show, Mark Freed, really great guy, and I've known him for a long time, and he knew that I was really desperate to get a good room. And he gave me a call and said, hey, there's a big room available. It's really expensive. I didn't even let him finish the sentence. It's sold. I will take it. Because I loved getting all the eyes onto that room, but we were limited in how loud we can play and exactly what kind of demos we can do because of the open air environment. So when we got that, we jumped on it and we got a really beautiful big room, about 35 by 35. And we paired up with a local dealer, Simply Stereo, one of Chicago's finest, and also a big UFC fan.
I love it. I don't know how I missed this, but I'm also was watching UFC that weekend, and it seems like whenever there's a show, there's a UFC event. No matter where the show is, what time of year it is, there's always ends up being a UFC event. And I'll usually get with John from Audio Technica, and we'll go find some place that has the fight or go back to the hotel or whatever. So really cool that other people actually experience this too. We thought we were the only guys. We were like, nobody else watches this. Like, this is a huge sport.
You are not alone. You have family. And I tell you, we'll remember anytime that we do Expona and there's a UFC, I guarantee you that's an open invite because it is such a ball to go to his store, watch it on a 200-inch screen. It's all fully tricked out with DALI. It's about a 15.4.4 system. So watching UFC in full surround, you'd swear the blood is splashing on your face. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to like a good theater setup, so something like that. So you guys also do those type of speakers that work well in those environments?
Absolutely. And that's another thing that DALI really brings to the table more than so many others. There are a lot of great CI companies. There's a lot of great traditional speaker companies, but there are not a lot. There are precious few that really bring it to the next level in both applications. And the same technology you see in Core and Epicore and Rubicore that I was talking about, the ribbon combination with the soft dome, the SMC and the wood drivers, DALI does that in their CI speakers. And it's Simply Stereo in Chicago, suburb actually, Palatine. They have it integrated all over the place. And these days, CI is just growing so fast. It accounts for about a third of our sales and about a quarter of our portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi is always changing. CI is coming in, home theaters up, 2 channels up, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
What do you guys have cooking? What's the crystal ball going to show for DALI in the next few months? Anything interesting coming up?
In the next few months, well, there's few things that are going to go down at Munich that I'd be killed if I shared with you right now, but a lot of fun things coming out.
But by the time this airs, hopefully they've already seen this. So if not, go check out the DALI at Munich.
Well, hopefully. It's a lot of what you're saying in that they're going to try to embrace integrating easier into the lifestyle. So there's a lot of that. Because frankly, the industry really does its best to shoot itself in the foot. Make sure you put your speakers like this and make sure you're that and sit right here and put your head in a vice. It's absolutely contrary to everything that DALI kind of pitches, that we just want to get into your home, leave it to us, we'll make it sound good. As you sort of said with the Core, which had absolutely no right sounding as sensational as it did in that area, but it does. And that's something that all of DALI do. And we just want to take it to the next level to make sure that it also hits on a few cosmetics, because in the CI world these days, the designer is just as important as the salesperson and installer. You got to make sure that it appeals to a certain eye as well. And make sure we're also addressing some aspects of the younger crew. DALI, just last year started to put out really high-end headphones. And the feedback we're getting for that is sensational. And that is sort of growing the industry for us as well, appealing to a younger market.
And the younger, more casual market, like that's huge, and that's what everybody's trying to figure out how to get into. And like exactly. I know when we had a room, we did the affordable HiFi room at Expona, and I was like, they're like, how many chairs do you want? I'm like, I don't want any chairs. I don't want people. I don't want that. I don't want that aiming in I said, no,
Exactly.
no, we're not doing that. There's no chairs in my room. Give me some tables so I can put more fun stuff on, and we're just going to have a good time and show things off. And I think, trying to, because the audiophiles, maybe they're 1% of people out there who could enjoy music, right? Who are enjoying music. And to find those other 99, I think that's the goal that everybody's trying to figure out. And, you have to change, right? And, I think you guys are doing a great job at that. And like, where do you see that going? Like in the next 5 or 10 years, do you see audio changing more?
I do see changes that are going to happen. Um, I mean, when you talk about appealing to the younger guys, there was a time where the hi-fi boutiques were everywhere. They're not anymore. And there's an expression: you don't know what you don't know. These guys are happy, guys and girls are happy to drop a few extra bucks on really good headphones. They just don't know what's out there. If you don't know any better, you think, okay, 300 bucks at Best Buy, I guess that's the best there is. But you don't know. It's kind of like, when you go to buy a diamond ring to propose for the first time, what do you know when somebody schools you? And then you sort of learn, oh, okay, I get it. Same thing on a headphone. They don't know, but they're willing to spend a little bit more. The other thing that we see changing is the next generation don't want their dad's system. They don't want things that are overly complicated. The perfect world is turn it on and it works. And another company that Lembrook owns, Blue Sound, is sort of driving that really strongly. Because while there is that comeback of vinyl and CDs and even tapes, believe it or not, to some point, this is what everybody knows. And pretty much everyone is streaming. And that's what most people want. They want to make it easy. And they want to be able to grab all their music and get it in one place. And Blue Sound is really doing a great job with that, with their streamers, with their combination amp streamers, and just add speakers kind of concept. And another company under the Lembrook umbrella is PSB, and they have powered speakers that use the BlueOS ecosystem. BlueOS being the app that all Blue Sound uses. And DALI has always been a real major partner of ours. And they had some speakers, some powered speakers that had that integrated. I see that probably growing immensely, because I think in the grand scheme of things, it's simply what a lot of people want. They need the speakers to make the sound. Sometimes they don't necessarily need everything that goes with us. There'll be the hobbyists that, want to add a turntable or want to add a different source. And then there are those that are just happy to stream. And I see powered speakers becoming a bigger and bigger thing.
So in your house, powered speakers, or do you have a system?
I have everything.
Okay, I figured that was the answer. But
You got to have music everywhere, right? Absolutely everywhere you go. There's not a room in the house that doesn't have something. So in the office, I have a pair of powered speakers, Oberon 1Cs, that just stream music all day long. At the TV, I will have a DALI soundbar. Downstairs, I'll have an NAD M10 Master Series, but a little bit smaller, something else that appeals to a lot of the younger crowd. They don't need the traditional 17-inch wide, whatever. They don't care about size. The only reason they're being made the same size is because so many people are used to it. But with new digital amplification, it's not quite as necessary in a lot of respects. So downstairs, when I want to do a little workout and frankly just blast it because I'm psyched after a UFC fight, that's where I'll have my
at
big
2 a.m.
Exactly. Too bad for the neighbors.
Yeah, 2 a.m. Too bad for the neighbors after that
Too bad.
UFC. So besides listening to UFC on them, what music are you listening to right now? Like give me an artist, but maybe a couple songs too.
Well, I just watched, I don't even remember the name of the title, but the movie was the Bob Dylan movie with Timothy
Yeah.
Chalamet. So that made me say, okay, let's revisit some of that. An interesting choice of words there. So the last album was Highway 61 Revisited, just to refresh my memory of all of that kind of stuff. And I'm a Dylan fan, but not gigantic. But one of his disciples, I've always been a big fan of Bruce Springsteen, listened to him a lot. And they just announced that he's going to be releasing something like 7 albums that hadn't been heard before. So Highway 61 Revisited, and in my office I have some albums framed because I like the artwork and I like the emotional connection when I see something and it resonates. Last album that I listened to beginning to end was The Police, Synchronicity.
And you're not wearing a police shirt. I'm actually, I thought we inked
It's
this
killing
band
me, man.
T-shirt
It's
deal.
killing me. I was wearing it right before this, and I thought, oh, man, how respectable do I have to look for this kind of thing? So I threw on a fleece because I'm in Montreal and it's cold out here, and I would have been comfortable. But yeah, always was a Police fan. A little bit more than Sting, like him too. Some good music, a little jazzier, but there was something very ska, reggae about that early Police stuff that I always loved. Um, I've always had dogs. I'm a big dog lover. I had a dog named Jagger, so that kind of tips off. I've always been a Rolling Stones fan. So while I know my demo material and I like it, the stuff I listen to isn't necessarily the greatest recorded stuff. But
I
it's
would not have taken demo material as an answer.
there. You go. Good. Exactly.
I asked, so what do you listen to in your car? Are you like what kind of, you listen to radio? Just what kind of music do you listen to in the car?
All right. Well, this is where it's going to get embarrassing, but hey, I'll share. In the car, in Sirius, it'll be locked on a few things, usually decades rather than a channel in particular. Every now and then, I love the 60s stuff. So every now and then I'll just get into the Beatles channel and listen to that nonstop. Love them. But often, and I think I'll take the opportunity just to blame the wife on this. Quite often, it's on the 80s channel. So we'll be listening to a lot of that.
Fun fact, when I talked to Agatha,
Yep.
it's exactly what she listens to in her car.
There
And
you
she
go.
also didn't want to tell me. But so that's why this is the most fun question now, because I learned something at Expona which I didn't know was a thing, and that's people listen to different stuff in their car than they listen to in their hi-fi system. And I am not one of those people. I listen, if I hear something on the radio, I just pop it on the hi-fi system. I don't care. But I learned that a lot of people listen to completely different stuff on a daily basis than they actually put on their hi-fi system. So I thought this is a fun question, because what you listen to in your car is what you're listening to.
Absolutely. That's just hysterical. And if you know Ag, if you know her, you love her, and she is usually as face value as it gets. I'm surprised she was reticent about it, because she usually will just proudly say something like that. But we do have similar musical tastes in that sense. And yeah, for sure. Hey, look, there's a lot of good new stuff. I'm a big Ed Sheeran fan, and Billie Eilish, her stuff is really well recorded. So when you go to a lot of shows, I love it when families will bring the kids and somebody will come in, and I can't judge age at all anymore. They're somewhere between 15 and 25, but I'll see them come in and it's like, all right, let's get some Eilish going for them. Just to see them bobbing their heads and tapping their feet. Her stuff is really well recorded. So that's one of those few that will really walk that fine line, because Eilish in the car, Eilish at home is cool.
And one of these days, I think the next playlist that I'm going to make is going to be the playlist that you can't not dance or sing to. Because if you've ever been anywhere and like a certain song hits, like it could be like, I think I was at like Warby Parker one day, and like, I don't know, like a Destiny's Child song came on, right? And I'm just standing there in the corner looking at glasses, and all the women in this entire store start singing and dancing. And I might have the artist wrong, but whatever. But all of them just start singing and dancing to this song. And I'm just standing back looking, and they're just looking at their glasses, or they're helping a customer. But employees and customers alike are just singing to them. Like, wow, these are the songs that I have to find to put on a playlist, because when people walk past the room, or maybe you're demoing a system, they can't help but sing or dance along to it. So
Absolutely. And look, that's the point of a good sound system. This is the point of actually any sound system is just connecting and giving you that emotional charge and making you have some fun. Um, so that's why I always say we choose to play music. Hey, look, we'll play some fun stuff, but you can do a deep dive and find some mainstream music that's well recorded. And my little secret for stuff like that, things that work really well are covers. So sometimes they might be newer and sometimes they may be somewhat obscure, but you play a cover and people are just sort of listening for a while and they go, hey, and then the head starts beating, they love it, and they eventually come over, hey, what is that? That's my little secret weapon.
I am a big cover person. Like
I
most of what
knew I liked you.
So if you like covers and you like any sort of like harder stuff at all, there's a rock band called Our Last Night. And they're on the edge of screamo a little bit, but like understandable screamo. I'm not big into the screamo scene. Like their actual music, I couldn't tell you one of their actual songs or what they say. Like, but they do covers of everything. Like there's probably Ed Sheeran cover. There's definitely a Billie Eilish cover. You got like they'll do anything from Britney Spears to Chris Stapleton or Morgan Wallen, whatever it is, and they do it and they'll start it off kind of slow, like it's just kind of like the song is, and then they'll just like hit in with like some screamo for the chorus, and if you like covers, Our Last Night, it's one of my favorite bands. That I literally don't know one of their actual songs, but yeah, that's been fun. And I'll vouch for him. He was going to wear the police shirt. That was the first thing that you said when we opened up the call. It was, dude, you're wearing a band shirt. I'm like, I know.
Oh, I love that. So I'm about to get you addicted to something. You're going to do a deep dive on Spotify. My wife is Colombian, and we had our honeymoon in Cartagena, a beautiful little island, Colombian island just off the coast. And we were sitting in the hotel having breakfast and sort of bobbing our heads to this really cool kind of acidy jazz, bossa nova kind of thing, and playing along. And then all of a sudden I hear the words, and it's Patience, Guns N' Roses. And I'm going, wow, what is this? Pull out the phone, do a Shazam. So for just about any artist on Spotify, you can do a deep dive and say bossa N, the letter, in this case, roses, bossa and roses, 10 of their biggest hits, all done to this bossa nova kind of style. And you can find bossa and stones, bossa and this, bossa and it is just the coolest thing that if you are sitting out back, just chilling on a hot summer day, greatest thing in the world to transport you to a beach somewhere. You will get addicted.
I love the beach team music too. So I like to relax and do that. So I'm excited. This has been fun. This has been a great time. It has been. It was great having you on the show. I can't wait to listen to some more DALI speakers hopefully soon and get to try some of the new stuff out. It'd be amazing. It all sounds good. And I'm telling you, when you see these in person for the first time, go up and touch the woofer, contrary to what they're probably going to want you to do in the shows, but it's very interesting. So it was great having you. Thank you so much, Jay Z. The original, the OG. I can't even say it. It just slips off the tongue so much. The OG Jay Z.
That is right. And now you can tell your friends and family, your colleagues and acquaintances that you have been indoctrinated to the hard rocking, to the mind shocking, the heart stopping, the ear popping, the hip shaking and the leg quaking, the artisanal and medicinal DALI speakers.
Man, you sure you don't have a history in professional wrestling too, like me? Because you're just nailing the promos right now.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It was a great time.
Thanks.
For Jay Z and Lenny and the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Peace.